morning, and I'm just looking out over this building site, and this used to be an orchard, like a massive orchard, as far as you could see across this massive field here. And it's actually a building site now, which is a bit sad actually, but because this is like the start of the fields and countryside near my house, and there is this element of like conflict within me, around house building and stuff like that. But there's an element of like I don't know, noticing progress and development, and I guess there's this idea that the house that I live in was actually built on orchards about 120 years ago, and sometimes there's this aspect of like zooming out a little bit for more emotional feelings around things and thinking about things a bit objectively, and there's this kind of aspect of these things are going to happen over time, and it can be a little bit like, well, is there an opportunity within that? And also noticing other things. So like what I particularly notice about house builders generally, these bigger companies anyway, is that they seem to be very efficient and quick about putting up these houses, and there's something cool about that, in the sense that, yeah, of course I'm like, I don't want to see the countryside disappear, but there is this element of like, the population grows, more housing is needed, and even the house I live in was orchards before, and there was a period of time where there was only a couple of houses in that area, and they have at least retained some of the trees, the apple trees and stuff, pear trees, which is nice, a little patch of it, but I guess I'm just thinking about that idea of progress, and how a week after, there's another housing estate, there's about 1,000 houses going up around here, and I guess I was thinking, people have already bought a bunch of the houses down there that have not even been built yet, and the bricks are just going up and it says sold outside of it, so there is this element of like progress happens, generally regardless, the human race tends to just looking at that building site there, human beings, we're like ants in some ways, we build nests, we build things, and we progress, and it's that thing, isn't it? Sometimes do we want to be part of that sometimes or not, and it's our choices, I guess. But I particularly like the speed with which they do things sometimes, these construction companies, and how, even though I like fields and nature massively, it's a little bit like a wonder, to see that they've built these houses so rapidly, and the system that they have. So it's this idea of having systems to do things. So they've got a template, they crack on, and before you know it, a year later it's done, and there's this massive housing estate there. It's like, whoa. It's a little bit like that with ourselves, it's like, if you kind of apply a template of progress and you crack on with it, each day things improve, or each day things get built, and yeah, I guess there's this aspect of, acceptance of progress sometimes, and the changing nature of the world and stuff like that, and going with the flow a bit, and I'm actually heavily invested in house builders, in the UK, even though I'm a massive fan of the countryside. There's an element of it being an undervalued stock, in my opinion, from what I can see. But also, and it works in cyclical fashion, but there's also this element of acceptance that this is progress is going to happen there with or without you sometimes, you know. Yeah, and there's an element of, like, you know, being involved in something or not, you know. Yeah, so somebody's walking the dog and say hi. But so there's this element of, like, yeah, you know, noticing our differential views on things, and I guess yeah, noticing that progress will happen with or without you sometimes, you know. And do you want to be part of that or not sometimes? And I guess some people won't be, but it's a little bit like, if I can see that their methods are efficient and there's a need there, that these things are going to happen. So, you know, why not be part of that? And I'd like to be able to, for example, or I always thought I'd like to build my own house, you know. But the system in the UK is not very conducive to that. You know, you go to other countries and they're quite happy to let people build their own house of their own design, you know. It's quite efficient and cost effective to do so. And I like that aspect, you know. People have been able to be creative. But it's just not the system that we have here so much, you know. Yeah, so anyway, so I guess it's just this idea of progress, and how the builders seem to make progress very fast with things, you know. And it can be a little like that with ourselves, you know. We can actually make progress pretty fast with certain things if we apply a system, or we crack on with a kind of disciplined approach, and we work against the template that we've set for ourselves, you know. Like, for example, with this uni course, I've got a report to write over the next week or so, and you know, I'll crack on with that over this next week, and there'll be a system to it, you know, where I'll write 1,000 words, or each part will get an allocation of 3 or 4 hours, 2 or 3, 4 hours, yeah. And kind of breaking things down into chunks, you know. It's a little bit like with these builders, they prepare the land, then they put in the foundations, you know, then they put in the first layer of bricks or the pipes underneath and all of this, yeah. And then they just, boom, the house goes up, you know. And it's a little bit like that with ourselves. We just kind of break it into chunks, you know. It's like, we'll get the introduction and the first part done. I'll not just think about the whole thing, because sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming to think about the essay, you know. Oh, it's 3,000 word essay. How are we going to get all of this done, you know? It's like, no, what's the first bit? Well, the first bit is to get the introduction done and part 1, you know. And then let's take it from there, you know. Get that in the bag, and then get the foundations done, you know. Then we'll get the first layer of bricks and the bottom floor done, which is part 2. And then we'll you know, think about part 3, which is getting the roof on. And then when we've finished it, we'll let it all settle a minute, and then we'll inspect it like they do with the house building. So they'll go and check it for quality. So then we'll kind of go and review the whole thing, tidy everything up, check it for quality, and then it's a finished product, you know. So yeah, breaking things down, brick by brick kind of approach, you know, can mean it's less overwhelming, and also that it gets done, you know. Have a good one.